If you work out hard, cut carbs, count calories, and still feel like you always end up back in the same place, maybe the problem is not a lack of effort. Maybe the problem is that you are fighting against the way your body and your environment actually work. Most people believe that losing weight is a matter of discipline. Eat less, move more, resist temptation. But in practice, it is almost never that simple. A lot of diets work for a few weeks, sometimes a few months, and then everything falls apart. Hunger increases, fatigue sets in, motivation drops, and the weight comes back. Not because the person is weak, but because the body interprets weight loss as a threat. When you eat less for a long time, your metabolism can slow down, hunger signals increase, and your brain starts paying more attention to food. Your body is not thinking about summer, about how you look, or about a photo. It is thinking about survival. And that is exactly why looking at Japan is so interesting. Japan has one of the lowest obesity rates in the world. And the most curious part is that this does not happen because Japanese people live on restrictive diets, or because they spend hours at the gym, or because they cut out everything enjoyable. They eat rice, they eat noodles, they eat desserts, they buy food at convenience stores. And yet, the average relationship with body weight seems far more stable than in countries where the obsession with dieting is much greater. So the question is inevitable. What did they understand that the rest of the world keeps ignoring? The answer is not a magic food. It is not some Eastern trick, and it is definitely not infinite willpower. What exists there is a set of cultural, environmental, and behavioral habits that make staying lean more likely, without turning life into a daily war against food. In other words, it is not about dieting more aggressively. It is about organizing your life in a smarter way. And in this video, I am going to show you 9 Japanese habits that help explain why staying lean, for many people in Japan, seems less like an extreme effort and more like a natural result of their lifestyle. Most importantly, several of these habits can be adapted to your own routine, even if you live on the other side of the world. Habit 1. Training your palate from an early age. One of the biggest differences between cultures is not just what people eat, but what they learn to consider normal. In Japan, food education starts early. In many schools, lunch is part of the educational process. Meals are carefully planned, with a focus on nutritional balance, variety, and real food. Instead of growing up thinking it is normal for food to be ultra-processed, hyper-palatable, and loaded with sugar, many Japanese children grow up eating rice, fish, vegetables, soups, and simple preparations. That shapes the palate. And that detail is huge, because taste is not just an innate preference. Taste is also training. The brain learns to crave what it encounters repeatedly. If a child grows up exposed to natural flavors, the mild bitterness of some vegetables, the taste of broth, the texture of rice, the delicacy of fish, those things become familiar. And what is familiar tends to feel safe, comfortable, and enjoyable. Now compare that to environments where the foundation of a child's diet is made up of products that are extremely sweet, salty, crunchy, and engineered to drive overconsumption. In that scenario, the palate starts chasing intensity all the time. Fruit seems boring, vegetables seem dull, simple food seems like not enough. The good news is that the palate can be retrained at any age. It does not happen overnight because your brain needs repetition to recalibrate what it finds pleasurable. But it does happen. When you reduce ultra-processed foods and consistently go back to eating simpler food, flavors become clearer. Too much sugar starts to feel overwhelming. Too much fat starts to feel heavy. And what once seemed bland starts revealing layers you never even noticed. If you want to apply this habit, you do not need to overhaul everything in 1 week. Just start small. Swap one ultra-processed item per week for a more natural version. Maybe replace a heavily sweetened yogurt with plain yogurt and fruit. Maybe swap cream-filled cookies for fruit and nuts. Maybe add a simple soup or a meal with rice, vegetables, and real protein. The goal is not to suffer. It is to train your palate to recognize food as food again. Habit 2. Making the healthy choice the easy choice. A lot of people think Japanese eating habits are healthy because people there are incredibly disciplined. But that explanation is incomplete. One of the most powerful secrets is not just individual choice. It is the environment. In Japan, convenience stores are everywhere. But convenience does not necessarily mean junk food. In many cases, people can easily find relatively balanced options. Onigiri, soups, bento boxes, salads, tofu, fish, teas, smaller portions, ready-to-eat items with simpler ingredient lists than what you find in many Western environments. This point is essential because we like to believe we are always making rational decisions. But in daily life, most food decisions do not come from deep reflection. They come from tiredness, being in a rush, hunger, and whatever is easiest in front of us. That is where the concept of environmental design comes in. The environment shapes choices. If the fastest, cheapest, most accessible option is ultra-processed, you will need a lot of mental energy to resist it. If the convenient option is reasonable and nutritious, eating better requires much less effort. That changes everything. Because in practice, eating well rarely depends on heroism. It depends on friction. How much friction is there between you and a good choice? And how much friction is there between you and a bad one? Want to apply this in your own life? Make the healthy option obvious, and make the less healthy option less available. Keep washed fruit out where you can see it. Have eggs, yogurt, cooked rice, frozen vegetables, tuna, beans, nuts, and tea at home. Put together quick combinations for busy days. If you are always relying on willpower when you are tired, the odds of losing that battle are high. But if your environment is already set up well, you do not have to win against temptation all the time. You just have to follow the path of least resistance. Habit 3. Controlling portions without feeling punished. One of the most striking features of Japanese eating is visual and quantitative moderation. Instead of enormous plates piled high with food, it is common to find meals with smaller, well-distributed, and varied portions. A little rice, a soup, a protein, some vegetables, something fermented. It is not scarcity, it is balance. There is even a well-known idea associated with Japanese culture: eating until you are about 80% full. This concept is powerful because it breaks the automatic impulse to eat until you feel stuffed. In many societies, stopping before you are completely full can feel strange, but from a physiological standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. The brain does not register fullness instantly. There is a delay between the moment you eat and the moment your body signals that it has had enough. When you eat quickly and in large volumes, it is easy to overshoot that point without realizing it. There is also a psychological factor called the unit bias. People tend to feel satisfied when they finish whatever was served to them, regardless of the portion size. If the plate is enormous, the tendency is to eat a lot. If the portion is smaller, finishing it still creates a sense of completion, but with fewer calories. And the most interesting part is that smaller portions do not have to feel like deprivation if there is variety, visual appeal, and rhythm. A visually appealing plate with different textures and smaller portions can be more mentally satisfying than a massive, disorganized serving. In practice, you can test this in a simple way. Use smaller plates. Serve food in defined portions rather than bringing pots to the table. Add more visual variety. Arrange your salad, vegetables, rice, and protein in an organized way. It might seem like a small detail, but presentation influences your perception of fullness. Eating well is also a sensory experience. Habit 4. Real awareness about sugar. If there is one dietary component that has undermined the modern relationship with weight, it is excess sugar, especially in drinks and ultra-processed products. And one of the most important cultural differences between Japan and countries with high obesity rates is exactly that: the level of sweetness considered normal. In many Western contexts, everything is extremely sweet. Coffee comes loaded with syrup. Yogurt tastes like dessert. Sauces have sugar. Bread has sugar. Drinks come in large sizes, and having something sweet to drink several times a day has become routine. The problem is that this distorts the palate and increases calorie intake without generating proportional fullness. In Japan, while sweets and processed products certainly exist, the average consumption tends to be more moderate. Portions are usually smaller. Dessert does not have to be enormous to feel satisfying. Often, the value is in the delicacy, the presentation, the seasonality, and the ritual, not in excess. That teaches a very important lesson. Pleasure does not depend on volume. And there is more. When you reduce sugar for a while, your perception shifts. What once seemed normal starts to taste too sweet. In other words, your brain and your palate are not fixed, they adapt. What feels necessary to you today may, in a few weeks, feel excessive. A simple strategy is to start with drinks. Soda, sweetened juices, syrup-heavy coffee drinks, and energy drinks can add up to a lot of calories without you even noticing. Swapping one of those drinks for water, unsweetened tea, sparkling water, or green tea already reduces the calorie load and helps recalibrate your taste. Green tea, by the way, fits well into this logic because it offers flavor, a mild bitterness, a sense of ritual, and a moment of pause without needing sugar to be interesting. Habit 5. Eating on a more structured schedule. Another underrated factor is regularity. A lot of people live in a chaotic eating pattern. They skip breakfast, grab whatever is around mid-morning, rush through lunch, go hours without eating, attack snacks in the afternoon, and end the day eating too much, often late at night. That pattern confuses physical hunger with impulse, disrupts energy levels, and increases the chances of making poor decisions. When you spend the whole day disorganized, your brain does not enter a state of balance. It enters a state of compensation. In Japan, many people follow a more predictable meal structure. It does not mean absolute rigidity, but there is a rhythm. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. That regularity helps the body anticipate energy intake and reduces the need for constant impulsive snacking. Having a schedule is not just an external rule. It is a way to reduce mental friction. When you have a rough sense of when you are going to eat, food stops taking up so much psychological space. You do not have to negotiate with yourself all day long. It also helps reduce episodes of nighttime overeating. A lot of people do not realize that the loss of control at night actually started in the morning. A full day of restriction, rushing, or neglect usually ends in accumulated hunger and a weakened ability to self-regulate. If you want to try this habit, aim to have 3 main meals at relatively consistent times. It does not have to be perfect. You just need some predictability. And if possible, try not to eat dinner too late, especially if that tends to come with TV, scrolling on your phone, and mindless snacking. Habit 6. Building natural movement into your day. A common mistake is imagining that only what happens at the gym, on a scheduled run, or during a structured workout counts as physical activity. Exercise is important, of course, but it is not the only variable. There is a component that is often overlooked, called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Walking, taking the stairs, carrying things, standing up, getting around, biking, spending less time sitting. In many Japanese environments, movement is built into the daily routine. People walk to the train station, take the stairs, use public transit, and rely less on cars for short distances. It does not feel like a workout, but over weeks, months, and years, that movement creates an enormous difference in total energy expenditure. And the best part is that this type of movement tends to be more sustainable because it does not require a specific block of extreme motivation. It is simply woven into everyday life. This may be one of the most powerful takeaways from this video. Sustainable leanness usually does not come from short-term heroic efforts. It often comes from small actions repeated every single day. If you work out for an hour a day, but spend the rest of the time completely sedentary, your total calorie burn may not be as high as you think. But if, on top of your workout, you walk more, take the stairs, go for short walks after meals, stand up between tasks, and reduce long stretches of sitting, the cumulative effect is much greater. To apply this, think less about burning calories and more about living in motion. Walk to take care of things nearby. Take phone calls while walking. Use the stairs when you can. Park a little farther away. Take a 10-minute walk after lunch or dinner. It sounds small, but that is exactly the point. The small, when done daily, becomes decisive. Habit 7. Eating slowly. This habit might seem too simple to matter, but it can completely change your relationship with fullness. Eating fast is a hallmark of modern life. People eat standing up, in the car, while scrolling on their phones, in between tasks. They barely notice the flavor, the texture, or how much they ate. Before they know it, they are done. The problem is that the body needs time to process what is happening. Fullness signals do not arrive instantly. In a culture where people eat more slowly, use utensils that naturally reduce the size of each bite, and pay more attention to the act of eating, the chances of unknowingly eating past the point of fullness go down. It is not magic. It is physiology and behavior. Eating slowly allows you to notice earlier when real hunger is gone. It also increases the sense of satisfaction because the brain better registers the experience. When you barely notice that you ate, you tend to look for something more shortly afterward, as if the meal never really happened. You do not need to use chopsticks to apply this principle, though that can help. Just slow down deliberately. Put your utensils down between bites. Chew more thoroughly. Breathe. Avoid going from one forkful straight to the next without a pause. Ask yourself halfway through the meal, am I still hungry, or am I just continuing because the food is here? That question changes a lot. Habit 8. Respecting the moment of the meal. In many modern cultures, eating has become a secondary activity. The primary activity is working, watching something, driving, texting, scrolling through a feed. Food becomes background noise. And when it becomes background noise, you lose touch with almost everything that matters: hunger, fullness, satisfaction, quantity, and even real pleasure. In Japan, there is often a sense of respect surrounding a meal, not necessarily as a formal ritual every single time, but as a moment that deserves your presence. Food is not just fuel. It has context, presentation, rhythm, a beginning, and an end. That mindset changes eating behavior. When you treat a meal as something worth paying attention to, the tendency is to eat more mindfully. And mindfulness does not mean rigidity or guilt. It means noticing. Noticing the aroma, the temperature, the texture, the moment when hunger starts to ease, the point when enough is enough. This practice is almost the opposite of eating on autopilot. And eating on autopilot is one of the biggest drivers of overeating because it shuts off the body's natural feedback system. If you want to try this habit, have one meal a day with no screens. No phone, no TV, no laptop. Sit down, look at your food, eat at a slightly calmer pace. It sounds basic, but it can be deeply transformative, especially for anyone who lives on autopilot. Habit 9, seeing leanness as the outcome of a system, not as an obsession. This may be the most invisible habit, and at the same time, the most important one. In many places, losing weight is treated as an intense and temporary project. The person goes into diet mode, tightens everything to the max, suffers for a few weeks, and then cannot keep it up. The focus stays on the immediate result, not on a sustainable way of living. In the habit model we have been looking at here, leanness tends to emerge less as a desperate goal and more as a byproduct of a coherent routine. Moderate portions, less liquid sugar, more walking, more regularity, more attention during meals, more simple food, fewer extremes. Do you see the difference? Instead of depending on large acts of self-control, this system reduces the number of battles you have to fight. And that is crucial, because willpower is a finite resource. No one can win dozens of hard decisions every single day forever. But when the environment, the rhythm, and the habits are aligned, you stop needing to be strong all the time. That is why so many people fail with diets but succeed with lifestyle changes. A diet usually means concentrated effort. A lifestyle means repeated identity. You do not need to keep asking yourself, how do I lose weight fast? Maybe the smarter question is, how do I build a life where staying at a healthy weight becomes easier? That is the Japanese question behind the theme of this video. If we condense everything, the big secret is not a food, a supplement, or a hidden technique. The secret is that your environment and your culture can make healthy behavior more automatic. The Japanese habits for staying lean do not work because of some magic gene or because everyone there is disciplined at a superhuman level. They work because daily life naturally favors simple, less hyperpalatable food, more moderate portions, less hidden sugar and less liquid sugar, more predictable meal times, more natural movement throughout the day, a slower pace during meals, more presence and less distraction while eating, less of an all-or-nothing mentality. And here's the best part. You do not need to copy an entire culture to benefit from these ideas. You just need to adapt the principles. For example, imagine someone who makes just 5 changes. They start drinking fewer sugary beverages. They organize 3 main meals per day. They walk 10 to 20 minutes after a meal. They use a smaller plate and avoid going back for seconds automatically. They have at least 1 meal a day without screens. That would already be a quiet revolution. No crazy diet, no starving yourself, no living at the gym, no turning eating into punishment. The truth is that losing weight and staying lean rarely depends on constant suffering. What matters most is the way your routine is designed. Japan shows us that the body responds better when it finds balance, predictability, and respect, not permanent war. Maybe the biggest lesson is not eat like a Japanese person in a literal sense. The biggest lesson is build an environment where healthy is the default, excess is not automatic, and food returns to its place as nourishment, pleasure, and awareness. Because when you stop fighting your body all the time and start organizing your life in its favor, staying lean stops being a dramatic battle. It becomes a consequence. And now I want to hear from you. Which of these Japanese habits would you try first in your own routine? Eating more slowly, cutting back on sugar, setting more consistent meal times, or moving more throughout the day? Drop a comment below. And if you enjoy understanding how culture, behavior, and psychology shape the body and the mind, subscribe to the channel, because there is a lot more content like this on the way.